everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this wonderful Tokeativity event. Welcome. I am so excited to share this space with you today and a little bit about what I have learned about the social equity licensing process. If you are attending this session, I suspect that there's a good chance that you have already done a little bit of research into the social equity program in your city, county, or state. And you're probably ready to dive into that process of becoming a social equity applicant, which leads to becoming a social equity licensee. This event is a space for us to explore that process, what you will need to do to prepare for that process, and how you will need to eventually execute that process. I'm going to give general overviews and examples to help you think about how to prepare and what to gather. I will be answering any questions that come through the chat at the end, so please feel free to reach out to me personally after this session as well to walk through your particular situation that's happening in your particular locality. I will provide my contact information at the end of the session so that you can reach out to me directly. Okay, let's get started. Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Timeka Drew. I am the founder of Biko Flower, and it's a California-based cannabis brand. Our tagline is "Light the spark that leads the way," because we are committed to being the change that we want to see in the cannabis industry. And I really just want to give a shout out and a thank you to Tokeativity for having us be a part of this wonderful event today. A little bit more about me and my background, about how I know anything about social equity licensing. Currently, I am the VP of Compliance and Strategy at Stachs, which is the plant-touching arm of Eaze. And I am the co-founder of our academy, which is a workshop, mentorship, and resource group of individuals and companies in the cannabis industry that are open and willing to share their knowledge and support social equity qualified applicants. I am also a social equity licensee in Los Angeles. I have a manufacturing license, a cultivation license that I'm a partner on, as well as a retail license through the LA Phase 3 Round 1 process that I will be operationalizing hopefully soon. I come into the cannabis space as a medical patient who was suffering from Crohn's disease and actually was able to utilize cannabis to save my life. I was always told that I would never be able to have children, and with the help of cannabis medicine, I was able to heal my body and have 4 beautiful children that I hope to inherit my business one day. Okay, our next portion of the presentation is really thinking about your own story. What is your connection to social equity, and how do you see yourself serving your community? Storytelling is really just an important aspect of social equity work because it really lays the foundation and helps people understand that the war on drugs created a lot more than the statistics that we read about in magazines and newspaper articles. It created lived experiences that have irreparably changed lives and changed communities. Remember, when you're going to apply to be a social equity licensee and apply for that license and be awarded that license, that information is going to be public. So there's not going to be any hiding the fact that you've obtained a cannabis license, and it will be searchable in your local and state cannabis license databases. So you want to think early about how you would like to maneuver that story and your lived experience, and attach that to your new path down the road of cannabis licensure. A really short version of this for myself could be, my name is Timeka Drew, and I'm a social equity verified applicant and medical cannabis patient. I raised my children for 13 years in beautiful South Central Los Angeles, working as a nonprofit organizer. And I'm committed to building community-forward, best-in-class cannabis companies that they can inherit one day. Next, we want to talk about your vision. What kind of cannabis company do you want to build? Establishing a clear vision of what you're building will enable you to best attract aligned partners and ensure you have the support you need for ongoing success. So the first question is, what kind of cannabis operation do you envision being a part of? Is it small? Is it family owned? Are you operating in multiple states? Or are you hoping to expand into different countries one day? Do you have a passion for vertical integration? And do you want to one day hold all the licenses that are going to make it possible for you to control your entire supply chain? These are good things to think about in the very beginning so that you can position yourself properly to achieve all of your goals. Do you want to be an active or passive participant in building your business? Don't tell anyone that there's one particular way to be a social equity licensee, because there isn't. If all you want to do is enable really great partners to be able to operate a license and you take a passive portion of those distributions, that's okay. And it's okay to build a business structure and a business that's going to allow for you to make the most money and be able to make the best businesses that are going to serve your community in that way. So it will be really important to recognize if you want to operate your multiple licenses, like I said in the beginning, and are you open to change with your partnerships and in your vision? What are your non-negotiables? What are the parts of your vision that you're not willing to change based on anybody that might come in and have a different vision for your company? If I were going to lead you through a really short example of this for my own company, Biko, I would say, Biko is a global cannabis brand building a flagship store based in Los Angeles that celebrates the creative energy of an artist salon, featuring residencies and unique exhibitions showcasing an eclectic collection of beautiful, diverse, and inclusive cannabis brands. So right there, when I'm talking to partners about my own retail cannabis business that I will be building soon, it lets them know that I have a really strong vision for what I want that retail, cannabis operation to look like. I already know what I want the branding to be. I'm likely not going to be open to someone that's not going to allow me to build this artist salon, create showcases for other cannabis brands, and be able to lift up the brand Biko. Next, let's talk about the nitty-gritty considerations when gathering information around social equity licensure. That first step is going to be collecting your eligibility documents. Being eligible for social equity licensing is really not enough. Whether you're eligible or not, if you can't prove that eligibility with documents, it doesn't matter. And you're going to need a variety of many documents to be able to prove that eligibility. Believe it or not, there's actually plenty of applicants that go through an entire social equity licensing process, and I've worked with them to find out after submission and regulatory review that they just didn't have the proper paperwork or enough paperwork to prove their equity status. To make sure that this doesn't happen to you, no matter where you are in the process or in the country, it's really important to begin gathering and saving your paperwork as soon as possible. Some of that paperwork that you're going to want to start gathering ASAP are going to be your income tax records. They really help prove a lot. They help prove your income and your address in particular, which will definitely need to be verified for a number of years, depending on the particular program and how things have been set up for social equity verification. You'll typically need to show your state taxes. And sometimes this is the only way to prove residency. In the Illinois process, for example, they were a required part of the submission for social equity applicants going through that retail process to get points for being an Illinois resident. And even if you had other things that showed you lived in Illinois, you really had to be able to produce those Illinois tax records, and they wanted to be able to prove that you paid your taxes. Your federal tax records are also obviously important. They'll almost always be able to be a valid form of income, a way to prove your income, and sometimes they can prove residency as well. More documents that you can use to prove residency are lease agreements, documentation that proves home ownership, your voter registration card, which is one that sometimes we don't think about, any kind of utility bills, which are really important and can often be formally requested and mailed or digitally sent to you. Even ones that you had from years and years ago are often able to be requested. Your personal identification card, your driver's license, or your passport are going to be required, and make sure that these are current. So often you'll think you have a document that is relevant and ready to go, and an expired driver's license is something that could get your whole eligibility stopped in its tracks. Next, let's talk about documents that'll be able to prove your low income status. Many of our licensing processes across the country, one of the ways that they prove if you were disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs is going to be rates of policing in the area and the kind of income status in an area. They produce all different kinds of algorithms that help them determine what makes sense here. If you can prove government assistance, if you can prove that you were a part of an income-based discount program or you participated in one, if you were a part of a relief program, if you can show income tax records, as we talked about before, bank statements are a way for you to prove your income, and pay stubs are a way for you to prove your income as well. If your municipality or your state allows for points or eligibility based on veteran status, you will need to have some kind of official government documentation being able to prove that as well. Additionally, if the way that you are eligible for your social equity licensing is from being arrested or incarcerated for an expungible offense, you will need to prove that by having your official court documents in order to prove that. If you are a family member of someone who was arrested or incarcerated, you will need to be able to prove how you are related to that family member, whether it's through birth certificates, medical records, sometimes school records, lease agreements might be able to prove that you are a part of the family or a part of the household. So check with your municipality or your state can actually turn in for these records. But if you're starting to gather them, these are a good idea of what you will be required to share. Additional records that you're going to need are business formation documents. What entity will you be using to apply for and hold the license? In my opinion, it's always a good idea for the social equity applicant to create their own entity to begin with that they own and control before they bring in any partners that may want to create an entity for the group that has sneaky terms that are within the operating agreement or the corporate bylaws that will disempower social equity partners. Each license should have a separate entity because that will increase your optionality around partnerships and ownership and transferring ownership along the way. It might cost that fee to set up the LLC, and you'll be responsible to keep track of the taxes and business filings as well. But nothing will be able to be changed regarding your entity without your knowledge and without your approval. And this is really important when considering your business that's going to hold your license. Now, regularly requested business formation documents definitely vary, but I've seen statements of information, operating agreements, and bylaws, depending on your entity type, your EIN paperwork, your seller's permit, if it's applicable. Definitely a list of owners or primary personnel. Sometimes these individuals will be required to go through a live scan process or background checks, so be aware of that. A list of the financial interest holders in the business, and often financial information is asked to be shared. So if you already have a bank account that's attached to the entity that will hold the license, the regulatory authority might want to see those bank account records. They might want to know what your balances look like. They might want to know what kind of loans you've taken in or what kind of investments you've taken in to help operationalize your business. You might have to show business tax registration certificate. And if you already have your facility and that's part of what's required to apply, you might have to show a certificate of occupancy as well. Now that you've gathered everything you need to prove you're eligible for social equity licensure, and you've set aside all of your relevant business formation and financial documents, now it's time to start thinking about the documents, plans, and materials that you're going to need to actually apply for the license. First, you're going to have to share your business considerations. Let the regulators know how you intend to run your business. What kind of a business entity will this be? Business considerations that are regularly requested to be proven by an applicant include the signing of a labor peace agreement, which will ensure that you're going to allow your workers to organize in a fair way. An indemnification agreement that is ensuring that you're not going to sue the municipality or the licensing authority around this still federally illegal business activity. And a landowner attestation typically needs to be submitted, which ensures that the property owner that you're working with has authorized you to be conducting commercial cannabis activity at your business site. Additionally, the regulators might want to know if you have any kind of environmental plans or plans for energy efficiency attached to your cannabis operations. Do you have green practices or plans? Do you have any carbon footprint mitigation? Are you planning to use renewable energy? Do you have efficient lighting and heating and cooling plans? Certain municipalities really require for you to be showing that you are mitigating, and it's really good to think about your environmental plan and include it, even if a municipality or a state doesn't require it. Further, the regulators might want to know how you intend to benefit the community. What is your community benefit plan? It will typically include community reinvestment or nonprofit support, how you might educate youth around the harms of drug abuse or underage abuse and use, what kind of plans you have for establishing workforce development programs, what kind of hiring practices you plan to use to support targeted communities. Do you have any plans for hiring local, and what percentage of local hires do you plan to use? Do you have endorsements from any local community organizations or stakeholders that see you as a benefit to the community? These might be actual requirements, the environmental plan, the community benefit plan, or they might be a way for you to score additional points or compete with other businesses in really competitive processes. Next, we turn to operational considerations. The regulators want to know, and they want you to share how you're going to operate your business. You're going to want SOPs and plans for inventory control, for waste management, for hiring and training your personnel, and obviously for your cannabis operations. These are all going to be requested. These are expected to be formulated in compliance with the local and state regulations for cannabis activity and the associated regulations that are a part of the local governmental requirements for whatever business type you're operating. That's the most important thing to remember when drafting SOPs, plans, or filling in any kind of worksheets that might be a part of the licensing process. They're really looking for you to have read the regulations and to present a plan that kind of regurgitates those regulations back to them. This means that with a real attentive reading of the regulations, oftentimes you can craft these plans without the help of a consultant. However, if you're in a licensing process that's highly competitive and it's based on points, the plans might need to be a bit more robust, and it might be smart to hire a consultant to help you out with those. Additionally, there's a series of compliance considerations that will need to be addressed, which include a radius map, your security plans, a premises diagram that's going to show where all of the different types of activity are going to happen within your facility, and an odor control plan, depending on the type of cannabis operation you're applying for. These will typically require outside vendors, and the prices can range pretty wildly for providing these plans. Sometimes municipalities will accept a radius map, for example, that you create yourself with zoning maps that are available for the general public to use online. But oftentimes you might need to hire a vendor to create the map and to attest to doing the research that's required to ensure true accuracy. If you need a premises diagram for a facility that doesn't have any accurate floor plans or site plans to speak of, and believe me, this happens all the time, you might need to hire somebody to actually walk that facility for you to ensure that you have accurate facility plans that you're creating from scratch. If you're going through a conditional use permit process or an administrative use permit process that includes zoning or planning departments, you're going to need to submit additional drawings like floor plans, site plans, signage plans, and parking plans that go into more depth around what the facility is going to look like. Some municipalities will allow for you to apply for licensure without already having a building, but many processes do require for you to have that building chosen and for you to hold the property and all the upfront costs for that property throughout the entire licensing process, which obviously can become incredibly expensive, which leads us to our kind of final set of considerations, discussing how you're going to pay for everything that we just talked about. So as we think about this last consideration, let's not think about specific deal terms, and let's think about what you actually need to get your business operating the way that you envision it, and what kind of people and companies you might like to work with to be able to make that vision a reality. What do you really need to get things started, to get it off the ground before licensure and after licensure? You might need a loan and you might need investment. And it can be helpful to ballpark how much money you need and think about how much equity you want to hold on to, but try not to exclude possibilities when you vet potential partners and deal terms in the beginning. Keep yourself open to what your partners might be offering and still kind of have your non-negotiable lines in the sand that you won't allow to be crossed. Does your team that you would like to bring on board as partners need to have operating experience? Would it be helpful for them to bring legal knowledge or a legal team to the table? Do they have unique and valuable SOPs and plans that the business would benefit from that they would share with you as a part of the partnership? Do they offer compliance support? Are they going to be able to help even get the license? Will they be able to help build health, safety, and security plans? Do they have experience with labor relations? Are they, your partners, going to be active, or are they going to be passive in the business? How much day-to-day involvement do they want you to have, and how much day-to-day involvement do they want to have, and vice versa? Do they offer any technical support, like a POS systems, metric support? Do they have customer acquisition software? Are you in need of marketing programs or GPS delivery systems? Do you need help with fleet management or inventory management solutions that they might be able to help you solve for? Do they have real estate help and the ability to help you get the exact location that you need in a green zone that might be difficult to operate in? All of these are considerations when you're thinking about the kind of partner that you want to make a deal with. Now we have a little bit of time left for questions, and I've shared my information for you to connect with me afterwards in case you want to talk specifically about your social equity licensing process. I'm more than happy to help and answer any questions that I might be able to. You can connect with my brand, Biko Flower, on Instagram at Biko Flower. You can connect with me at Timeka Drew. You can send me an email at timekadrew@gmail.com, and please connect with me through LinkedIn. Okay, I see a couple little things coming through the chat. Let me see if I can answer these questions. I see Bianca has asked, is there some type of a COA database in our community of members? There's got to be plans that we can re-implement. I really think that that is an incredibly powerful comment, and I agree. I think the more that social equity community groups and communities come together all across the country, I think we're kind of putting together SOPs and plans that can really be shared across the board that make things a lot easier for everyone. And I think that's really powerful. The more and more we can kind of share information amongst each other and share some of these plans that we can replicate them, the more that we can get more folks like us licensed. Thank you so much, Alicia, for your comment. Much appreciation to everyone who has taken some time to come through today. I'm trying to scroll up in the comments to see if I've missed any questions. If anyone would like to come up and ask a question, we do have about 6 more minutes to do so. So you can always ask to join and I can bring you up. I think Bianca might have just asked to come up. Hi, Bianca.
Hello. Oh my goodness. Tamika Drew, thank you so much for opening up this space and for sharing your knowledge. I literally have kind of gone through every single emotion um, in your presentation of chills and tears and yeah, and all kinds of screaming. So thank you so much for being here. I'm already following you and trying to get in touch. So my situation is that I really never thought that I would be eligible for social equity. I've never lived in an area that was impacted by it, and I never had personally been to jail or been incarcerated in some type of way, and I'd never been arrested, never had anything quote unquote negative until you said family members. And to open up and to be vulnerable a little bit, my mom lost custody of me. I'm 42 now, but my mom lost custody of me when I was 10 because she was arrested for possession with intent to distribute. And I like from what I can remember, like it was like an eighth of cannabis. Like it was, I mean, maybe it was more than that. Maybe it was an ounce, but like, I mean, it was back in the day, and it was 1989. Like that was the year. Um, do I would really appreciate the help and the assistance of social equity, and I think it would. I think that I would be a good candidate for it. A mindful, smart, like I'm gonna do something productive with this social equity. Do you think I have like a chance, or like is it something that I should genuinely explore? Like is that something like 1989? Like is that doable?
Absolutely, Bianca. Absolutely. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story. And one of the things that we're really trying to do as a social equity community in general is get them to expand the eligibility a bit more to capture a lot of folks that were impacted in that way, because a lot of folks just like you, Bianca, that had parents who were incarcerated for this plant were then put into the foster care system, and that is
Oh my
incredibly
God, I
impactful
never
as
saw my
well.
mom again. Absolutely. It impacted my life, and it seems so minuscule, but now that I'm understanding more about it, it really did. Forgive me, continue.
No, it totally does. It totally does. And absolutely, when you can become eligible in that way, even when you're living in the particular area, let's say your eligibility was for the area, if you can trace it, if you can find that first school record from kindergarten where you lived there for that amount of time, you can become eligible that way, depending on your municipality. Bianca, please reach out to me after this. Please shoot me an email or, DM me through one of these channels,
Absolutely.
and I
I'm
would be
really intrigued.
happy to help and explore with you and research a little bit about where specifically you live and the eligibility requirements. And
Okay.
the other thing that I think we should really be doing as a community is that no matter if we're eligible or not, when we know that we are social equity, when we've identified that it's like, look, I'm a person of color. I have lived within these communities that have been decimated by the war on drugs, and I feel a passion about building a cannabis business in this way. Figure out how to partner and help empower whoever can be eligible to become eligible. Create a partnership with those folks and with each other so that we can build these businesses together and help each other out, because I know that you would be a wonderful business owner, and even if you weren't eligible, I know that you would be an amazing part of a social equity licensee group that you could help bring together with the knowledge that you're building about social equity right now.
Appreciate that, Tamika. Thank you so much. Of all things, if it's something that doesn't work out for me, even like I said before, the comment that you shared of me like collecting an SOP, a collection of sorts, something that can be re-implemented. Even if it's something that doesn't work out for me on my end, at least I have the knowledge through the experience, and I can share that just so that other women of color or any woman in general who would like to get into the cannabis space, they have some experience that they can read about or hear about, and be able to maybe not make the mistake that and like save their time and use their time more appropriately. Thank you very much. I'm gonna remove myself and let somebody else come up. But I really thank you so much. I'm gonna connect with you, and I look forward to figuring this out more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bianca. But yes, definitely. That is definitely a way. I worked with a lot of social equity applicants through the Illinois process. And that was specifically, if you can be the person who was arrested or had an expungable offense, or anybody in your family could be the person who was arrested and had an expungable offense. And if you can prove that you're related to that person through birth certificates, through different types of records, you can become eligible for social equity as well. So really appreciate that comment and that question, and so look forward to exploring that with you. I know we are at time now. It's been so wonderful sharing with all of you. I really hope to connect with all of you through social media. Thank you so much to Tokeativity. Big shout out to Kristen, my head of brand, for putting together this beautiful presentation based on my outline today. Thank you so much. Big shout out to our academy as well. Go learn some more about that at thisis.ourdream. And thank you so much. I'll talk to you all soon.